As you board, please move across your car to make room for everyone, and kindly offer available seating to those needing special assistance. If you're standing, please hold on to the handrails and stay clear of the doors. They will be closing in a moment. Thank you.
Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome to another episode of Disney Assembled. I'm Troy.
And I'm Mimi.
And we are your happy little father-daughter podcast, here to create joy and share our love for all things Disney.
Disney Assembled is sponsored by our patrons over on Patreon, Brenda, Danny, Connie, and Andrew.
Yes, thank you guys very much. If you would like to join our Patreon family and help the show out, go on over to patreon.com/Disney Assembled or go to our website, disneyassembled.com, and click on the Become a Patron button. Membership starts as little as $2 a month, and for that, you get access to all the exclusive Patreon-only content. However, if you're looking for additional Disney magic to bring to your life, check out Magic of the Mouse Radio. Magic of the Mouse Radio is the best internet radio station for all your Disney music. I believe right now they're playing 24/7, 365 Disney holiday songs and music, so check out magicofthemouseradio.com. You can also hear our show on Magic of the Mouse Radio every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern.
In addition to the Magic of the Mouse Radio family, I am so proud to be a part of the Magic of the Mouse News family. MagicoftheMouseNews.com has articles for anything and everything Disney related that you might want to read, so make sure to go check it out. MagicoftheMouseNews.com.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. And check those things out. You won't regret it. All right, Mimi. Last week, and we're recording this episode on Sunday, November, the 22nd? Today's the 22nd, I think.
Yes.
Just after Thanksgiving here in the United States of America. Last week we had a conversation where we sort of phased through the MCU. And it was based mostly on the fact that you and I had seen the Marvels. We really enjoyed the Marvels. Positive review for the most part. But the fact that the Marvels was not doing really well at the box office. And we had a conversation around the different phases of the MCU. As our kitty cat. Yes, that's your cat. Hello, Sally. We have cat wanting to be involved in the conversation. All right, you're either in or out, Sally. Sally wants in the studio, but she doesn't want to be locked into the studio. But so when the door's closed, she cries. But now she's outside the studio.
She likes to be wherever I am.
Yes.
And so she'll sit and cry at the door, and then I'll let her in, and then she'll run around for a second and not be able to get comfortable, and then get stressed out when she can't get out, and then cry.
And so at any moment now, she'll be pawing at the door to try to get back into the studio. However, back on topic. We had a discussion around the phases of the MCU and sort of the different movies. And we didn't go through all the movies, but we sort of ended up ranking, in our opinion, the by phases, the best phases, and sort of putting some context to the Marvels, where while we didn't think it was the worst movie, it has certainly done pretty bad at the box office.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking a lot about that episode last week and sort of related to some of the work that I have to do outside of Disney Assembled, which sometimes deals with some statistical data. And, you know, I wanted to challenge our assumptions about the different phases of the MCU and the different films in the MCU. And so I thought we would, we'd have assumptions assembled today. And what I did was I found an article on Business Insider, which ranked all of the 33 feature films in the MCU by worldwide box office. And this was updated, I think, this week, right? So it's relatively accurate. And they ranked them from the 33rd all the way to the number 1. And I thought we could have a discussion about the sort of challenges our assumptions about the phases of the MCU based on some real data, some real numbers, and using box office numbers. And we can look at the average, and the different. We'll get into it in the discussion, right? But I think it'd be good. I think people sort of assume that if a movie's not doing well at the box office, it must not be really good. Or if a movie does really good at the box office, it must be a very good film. And I wanted to challenge that assumption today in a conversation with you.
Yep.
How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Hopefully engaging, right? Because I know data for some people could be a little not as engaging, but we'll make it as fun as possible, right? Because Disney Assembled style, we'll make it fun.
Right.
Yeah, we'll do that. Also want to recognize, thank you. I'm looking right here to my left, a beautiful color. It's like what is it? A giant poster of an Avengers comic book. And what is it? The 100th?
It's the 100th
issue of the Avengers. It's a beautiful poster. Thank you so much. We're going to get it framed, and we're working on sort of for video purposes our studio, right?
Yeah, I purchased that. I went to the comic book store on Black Friday.
Yeah,
and their posters are already relatively cheap. They're $13 regular, and then it was 25% off.
And this is a big poster. This is like a 24 by 36.
Oh yeah, no, it's a big poster.
And it's a big movie size poster. And it's beautiful. It looks great. So it's got, maybe we'll take a picture of it and share it on our Instagrams or whatever.
Got all the characters.
It's got all the Avengers. I got to see Ant-Man, Wasp, Hulk, Scarlet Witch, Black Panther.
Vision.
I see Vision in there, Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Hawkeye. There's Hercules is in there somewhere. I see Quicksilver. And
it's cool. It's a cool poster.
The Black Knight, right? With the sword. Yeah. He's in there. So yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. It's going to look great in our studio. Thank you for that. Awesome. We also have our 200th episode coming up pretty soon. This is episode 198. Yes, it is 198. 200th episode coming up soon. We tried an YouTube live earlier this week. And
that was a mess.
Mixed feedback on that. We tried using StreamYard for the first time. It ended up working, but our camera kept cutting out, so we had to use the not so great computer camera. The audio kept cutting out, so we ended up having to use one microphone instead of two. We had a great conversation. We had one time. It's on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go to our YouTube channel. Check out our live there. Andrew joined us. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us live on that particular experiment. But the question remains for the 200th episode, if we're going to do something live, we kind of need to start advertising it pretty soon so people can mark their calendars. So guys, again, just like last week, if you have an opinion about how we should celebrate our 200th episode, let us know. DisneyAssembled@gmail.com would be the right place to send an email if you have an opinion about that.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else we want to share before we jump into this week?
No, I think I'm ready to jump in.
You ready to jump in this week? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this week's main topic, we do have to have our dad joke, don't we? So it is time, once again, for this week's Disney dad joke of the week. Oh, boy. Mimi.
Yeah.
Recently, the world of Frozen opened up. And I think it's in Hong Kong or Shanghai. I don't know which one.
I think it's in Hong Kong.
The world of Frozen opened. And, I don't know if this be fact. I heard that they've made it so accurate, the world of Frozen, that they have like this frozen pond out in the middle of the frozen world.
Right.
It's like really frozen pond, like frozen, really frozen out there. So much so that guests from time to time go out on this pond, and they've been doing like that, that frozen, that fishing they do on the ice, the ice fishing.
Yeah.
People out there ice fishing. Recently, though, it got a little warm out in that area, and Disney security had to run out and tell some of the guests that, the pond was melting. And the guests got really worried, the ones that were ice fishing. They were worried they were doing something wrong. And they said, no, you're not in trouble. You're just walking on thin ice.
That's funny.
Get it?
Yes.
All right.
I do.
That is this week's Disney Dad Joke of the Week. Ladies and gentlemen, please save us. If you have a dad joke of the Disney variety that you think we should use on the show, please send us an email, DisneyAssembled@gmail.com. Or how else can they send us a joke?
Through the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. all at Disney Assembled.
Yes.
I have like a serious concern about the world of Frozen, though.
Okay.
Like, legitimate question. If Toy Story Land can be called Andy's Backyard and Galaxy's Edge is called Galaxy's Edge and not Star Wars Land.
Right.
And I didn't have a third example. Oh, and Cars Land.
Right.
Is not, well, I guess it is called Cars Land. But
Yeah, I think so.
Radiator Springs.
Yeah.
Why is World of Frozen called World of Frozen and not the Kingdom of Arendelle? That really confuses me.
Could be the Kingdom of Arendelle.
Because the Kingdom of Arendelle, like, they have a setting. Like, why is it not named after the setting? That bothers me so much.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we can look up what the official name of that land is. I don't know if it's called the World of Frozen or Frozen Land.
It's called World of Frozen.
The Icebox.
Disneyland Hong Kong presents World of Frozen.
Okay. Well, good enough, I guess. I don't know. It kind of bothers you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, why is it not like Toy Story Land is called Andy's Backyard? Like, there's an official name that inserts it into the movie. Galaxy's Edge. It's called
Toy Story Land when you go to the app. It doesn't say Andy's Backyard. The setting is Andy's Backyard.
But it's referred to as Andy's Backyard by the cast members and by Woody when you walk in, because he says, "Welcome to Andy's Backyard." Yeah. Galaxy's Edge, that is a themed title. Radiator Springs is Cars Land. That is Cars Land. Radiator Springs is Cars Land. Okay?
Yeah, I hear
Why is...
Maybe they couldn't make it big enough to be all of Arendelle. Maybe it's just a sliver of it.
Arendelle?
It's
Arendelle?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it bothers me. But it looks beautiful.
And the actual Arendelle would not be in Asia. It would be like in
Germany.
Europe.
They're German.
Right?
They are German.
German?
They are German.
They're not Norwegian?
Nope, they are
Why
German.
are they in the Norway pavilion? Not in the Germany pavilion?
I don't know, but they are German, I think.
All right. Should we assemble our assumptions?
Yes.
All right, let's assemble our assumptions. Assumptions, assemble. All right, we're going to make some assumptions. We're going to challenge our assumptions. We're going to get into this MCU stuff.
Wait, on that, my favorite part of this whole poster, lean back, is that at the very bottom, it says Avengers Assemble, and then the text underneath it says, "Yes, we will." And I think that's hilarious.
Wait, it says, and we do mean assemble.
Okay.
It says Avengers Assemble. And it says, and we do mean assemble.
It's just like really edgy and silly for no reason. There's also two visions in the poster, and I don't know why.
Well, I don't know.
It's great.
It's kind of like saying Avengers Assemble, and we do mean assemble. It's kind of like what we really meant was go your separate ways. No, that's why we said assemble. So we had to emphasize, no, we really mean it this time. Like, stop going your separate ways. Truly assemble.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to assemble our assumptions. So last week, one of the assumptions we made was that because the Marvels had not made a lot of money, that it was one of the worst movies in the MCU. And we sort of challenged that. But I wanted to take a look at all the films and sort of give a high level sort of data analysis based on box office.
You're going to look at the distribution of box office sales.
Looking at distribution, this is worldwide, and it's not adjusted to inflation. So this is just the actual numbers. Okay, so I recognize that a movie that was released 10 years ago because of inflation.
So this is the nominal box office.
Right, it's just the pure numbers, right? It's not adjusted for inflation or anything. This is worldwide box office. So, it won't come as a shock that the worst is the Marvels. Right.
I'm looking at this number, $161 million.
Right.
Granted, it is still in theaters. So that number is ticking up. But
it cost over $200 million to make it.
That is so low. That is so low. Wow.
It is low by a good bit. The next lowest ranked film,
it's not even close,
is The Incredible Hulk from Phase 1 at $265 million. I rounded these numbers.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to put 265, 800,000, 200, whatever.
Right. So 265 million. So it's 100. Marvel's, as of about right now, is roughly $100 million below the Hulk in box office.
But the Marvels is a better film than the Hulk.
And you also have to recognize this is not adjusted for inflation. So the Hulk was released a long time ago.
2008.
So if you adjust for inflation, that number would be much higher. because tickets cost more today than they did when the Hulk was released, right? So the difference between the two is pretty big in real numbers, and then if you adjust for inflation, even greater, right? Quite large.
Yes.
There are 33 films. It won't come as a shock to know that Avengers Endgame was the highest box office at $2.8 billion worldwide, which is a huge number.
It's massive.
It's a massive number, which sort of gets, into some of the data analysis here, which is, what is the average of over 33 films? What was the average? What is the median? And so we're going to use some data numbers, right? When we say average is the mean is the average, right? So the word mean, for those of you who aren't data nerds, mean means average. Median is not the mean. Median is sort of the midpoint. So there were 33 films, right? Whichever film ranked 17th in order of box office, that's the median. It's the one in the middle of all of them. Does that make sense to you? So if you looked at all 33 films. Are you
explaining this to me?
I'm explaining it to our listeners too. But if
I'm in statistics. This is all we do.
But our listeners may not be, right?
Right, but you're looking at me and you're like, does this make sense, Mimi? Yes, it does. I am in econ and I am in statistics.
I'm not challenging what you know. What I'm trying to say is if what I'm saying makes sense to you, then perhaps it makes sense to our listeners.
No, it does. It's it's like, how in elementary school you would write 1 through 10 and then you would tick off like 1, 10, 2, 9, 3, 7, and then you would get hit with 5 in the middle. That's the median. Right.
So the median, or the number 17th ranked of the 33 films, is Guardians of the Galaxy at 773 million, right? So we have 33 films, which have brought in a total of just short of $30 billion in 33 films.
That's crazy.
The median, the one in the middle, is Guardians of the Galaxy at 773,000. The average per film is a little over 900 million, like $901 million per film is the average. Now,
of all the films.
Of all the films. Now, the problem with that is things seem to be weighed pretty heavy on the above average. So in other words, there are a number of films.
Well, because there's a crazy skew to the left, right? It's like the housing market, right? It's there's only a certain number of houses that cost $2 million are being sold, that because they cost more than, because there are, let's say there are 30 homes on the market. 4 of them cost $2 million and the rest of them cost $300,000. There's going to be that really intense skew to the left on this curve, because although there are less of the $2 million homes being sold, they cost way more. So It's like the bell curve. 10
of the 33 films have made over $1 billion. So just short of 33% of the films have made over $1 billion. Those are Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America Civil War, Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 made over $1 billion.
It's a horrible movie.
Black Panther, Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers Original Recipe Avengers, Spider-Man No Way Home, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. All 10 of those made over $1 billion. So if you look at the films that are sort of above the average, there are only 11 films out of the 33. So essentially a third of the films have made more than the average of all the films. So the average was 901 million. 11 of those films, because if you include Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which made 956 million, those 11 films have made more than the average. All the other films, 22 of the 33 films, have made below the average box office of all 33, which, like you said, there's a minority of the films that are inflating the average box office. But when you spread it out over 33 films, not quite as, most of the films are not making the average box office numbers.
No, they're not, because it's It's very skewed. And there's also this like insane, massive number for a standard deviation that like changes from the median, right?
Well, the
like
standard deviation, I did this. So the standard deviation, if you look at the mean, you looked at this population of 33 films, the standard deviation of the mean, which for those of you who don't know what standard deviation means, which you may not, is if you took all the films and you put them on.
Wait, I want to explain.
Okay.
A standard deviation is like, it's like how far away from the median are you, essentially?
From
it's
the mean?
From the median.
If the median and the mean are the same on a normal curve.
No, yeah. Well, okay,
right.
yeah.
You have to put it on a bell curve,
so
right?
if you're on a normal curve, assuming that, no, I think you're wrong. I think it's just median. But a standard deviation is how far away from the middle are you, essentially. Like
right. In a normal curve, the median and the mean are the same.
And it would like it's like how when you say I'm 5'3", I'm taller than like 20% of women. That's because I'm 3 standard deviations away from the median. It's like that. Basically, it's how far away from the middle are you.
It's the difference. If you put all these films on a normal curve, is the standard difference from the median each film is along the curve.
Yes.
Right. So if there were 33 films on this normal curve, each film would be an equal distance away from each other. And that number for this particular set of data is $558,542,101, right? So it's about $559 million is the standard deviation. So what that means is from one film to the next, you could see a difference
of that
between
much.
$500 and $600 million, which is a huge difference.
Right.
Which would suggest that the spread is enormous, which we know it is because the Marvels is at 161 million
but
and Endgame is at 2.8 billion.
Right. Like that's crazy. And also like if you just look at the data, like, okay, yeah, like the jump from 161 to 265 isn't great, but like after that they kind of even out. 371, 380, 402, 432, 440. Like these numbers are sort of gradually going up. There's no like massive jump until you get to this like from the not even really because you go from Spider-Man No Way Home $1.9 billion to Infinity War, $2 billion, to an Endgame, $2.8 billion. So even then, there isn't really that.
Well, the difference between Infinity War and Endgame is pretty big. 800 million is a pretty big. It's pretty big.
It's there's just this crazy like the data is not like
let's
symmetrical.
Let's do this. If the 17th ranked film was Guardians of the Galaxy at 773 million, that would suggest that every film above that and every film below, if the box office was a true measure of how good the film was, then every film above that would be better than Guardians, and every film below it would be worse than Guardians. And so let's challenge that assumption. Let's go a few forward and a few back. So Guardians of the Galaxy is the 17th out of 33 at 773 million. That is the median. One level up, the next one up, number 16 on the list, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at 846 million. Would you say that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is better or worse than Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think they're very different. I think that's apples and oranges. I mean, I think they're both good. I think they're both of equal quality. But the jump in their box office is crazy. 773.
But some of this may be attributed to inflation. Because again, we haven't adjusted these numbers for inflation.
Yeah, like fine. But there would still be a gap here. Because there would still be a gap there. But I think also the inflation wouldn't be too bad because that movie came out in 2015. But
well, people put Guardians of the Galaxy as one of the top 10 movies, maybe.
Yeah, I think I would say that. Actually, I think that's a really good way to go about it. Guardians of the Galaxy, classic. is, I think, in the top 10, top 15 of all Marvel movies ever.
I mean, it's better than halfway.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I would not put in the top 10.
Okay, that's fair.
It's a good movie, but it's just very different. I don't know. That's really where I'm.
Well, you said last episode that you thought Captain America: The First Avenger was your favorite. You thought it was one of your favorites. It is the third worst box office.
Because actually, I don't really know why. Well, okay, but then you look at it, right? Iron Man didn't do that well in the box office either. Thor didn't do that well in the box office. And when you look at the order of which these movies were released.
We also, not to spoil anything, but I also looked at by phases, the average box office by phase, and we ranked it that way also.
But if you look at in the order in which these movies were released, you've got Iron Man Classic, Incredible Hulk, Thor. Those movies all didn't do very well. Of course, Captain America, people weren't excited to go see Captain America. It's like every time DC releases a movie,
right, everyone's
like, oh, okay, cool. And no one goes to see it because all the other ones have been bad.
Well, there are currently 5 phases. We have 3 movies in phase 5. And again, I want to make clear, we did not account for inflation in this analysis, right? So inflation is not accounted for. But if you looked at by phases, the phase 1 films, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, First Avenger, Hulk, and Avengers. That was phase 1. Of the phases, phase 1 ranks 4th in box office out of 5 phases. Phase 5 is last. There's only 3 films. But first phase has the 4th highest average box office for the
lowest.
Films. The 4th. It's 4th on the list, right? The first is phase 3. Phase 3 averaged about $1.2 billion. Now, part of that is because
Infinity War and Endgame both
7 of the films in phase 3 made over $1 billion. Yeah. And both Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame were in phase 3.
7 of them made over $1 billion, and the other ones didn't even make above the average.
Right. Well, right. But a couple of them, 3 of the others made in the 800 million range and 2 of them made in the 600. And these films they cost about 200 something million to make. So those were all very profitable films, I would say.
I'm just kind of looking at back at phase 1, right? Like I think Captain America First Avenger is one of my favorite movies, but phase 1 in general didn't perform very well. Incredible Hulk, 265, Captain America First Avenger, 371, Thor, 449, Iron Man, 586, Iron Man 2, 624. They didn't strike gold until the last movie in this phase, which is Avengers Classic, and then they made $1.5 billion. And that is a fantastic box office record. Even not adjusted for inflation, that movie did very well. The other ones didn't do very well.
The average box office for phase 1 was less than what Doctor Strange made on its own.
Right. And I think that accounts for the fact that Captain America First Avenger didn't do well in the box office.
Well, the point is people point to phase 1 and they point to Iron Man but people didn't like Thor all that much. The original Thor movie was not, it was okay. Wasn't great, but phase 1 was not, it wasn't as profitable as people think it was. Well, let me rephrase that. It was profitable because they didn't spend as much on the money to make the movies. But not adjusting for inflation, phase 1 is the fourth phase, right? In terms of box office. We both thought phase 3 was the best phase in terms of quality of film.
Well, and it performed the best in the box office.
Performed the best in the box office. Now, I did not do this. I guess if I deleted Infinity War and Endgame from the equation, what would happen to if we didn't have Infinity War and an Endgame, what would happen to phase 3's box office? Okay. Well, it would go down to about $958 million. It would still be number 1.
Right.
It would still be, well, actually, no. It would be. It would still be number 1. So even without the Infinity War and Endgame, phase 3's box office numbers were the strongest.
Look, I think the box office can't accurately reflect the quality of a film, and my proof of this is Phase 4. Phase 4 wasn't the greatest. We all know that. We all understand that. But a lot of Phase 4 hit in the middle of the pandemic. And so Shang-Chi didn't perform that well, but nobody was going outside and going to a movie theater, right? I mean,
well, the theaters were open again. I think people were eager to go to the films.
No, I disagree. The theaters were open, but everyone was still, this was that weird period of time where everything was open again, but we were still wearing masks in public. So it was like a weird sort of moment of what's going on. Same with Black Widow, right? Black Widow didn't even release to theaters. It released to Disney Plus. And so I think you could say, oh, well, that makes it more accessible. No, it doesn't. Nobody wants to pay $35 to watch a movie in their home. That's stupid. Because when you go to the movie, you pay for the movie experience and the big screen and the whatever. And so I think a lot of what the box office is a product of what is going on in the world at the time. And the product of the production and the studio versus the actual film. Infinity War and Endgame were out of this world crazy successful. Those movies were hyped up, marketed like there was no tomorrow, and they ended the story, right? Of course the finale is going to do well. I mean, look at the Hunger Games trilogy or quad series, right? The first movie did well. The second movie didn't do fantastic, but it is regarded as the best of the movies. The third movie was horrible. The fourth movie performed really well. Everyone wants to see how things end, right?
Right. So, context is important, but if you look strictly at the numbers, let's take Black Widow's box office out of Phase 4. It goes up to 888 million.
It's higher than Phase 2.
Which would make it higher than Phase 2, not as high as Phase 4, but it would have helped. I mean, Black Widow's box office obviously hurt the average, but at the same time, Spider-Man No Way Home, which is in Phase 4,
had almost
$2 billion. So if you took that out and you took Black Widow out, you're still stuck with about a $682 million average, which still puts you higher than Phase 5. But also
this is Phase 5. Oh, no.
That's Phase 4. Higher than Phase 5. But, just a little bit better than Phase 1. It still does better than Phase 1.
Well, you have to take out the outliers in Phase 2 as well.
Right. Well,
I mean, looking at the numbers, obviously the newer films are not performing as well. I do think it's interesting, though, that movies that Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, it kind of proves my point that context is important. Everybody loved WandaVision. Everybody was super excited to see where that character was going. This movie was not marketed super well, but it didn't have to be. There was natural hype created around this movie. It made almost $1 billion in the box office, and I would put it in the bottom 5 of all these films.
Well, right, because it was disappointing to us when we saw it. Let's look at it this way. We talk about standard deviation as a difference from the mean. If you look at the mean, the average, 901 million, only one film out of the 33 has done better than one standard deviation from the mean. So if the standard deviation is about 559 million, the mean is about 901 million. Only one film has done better than 1 degree better than the mean, and that is Avengers Endgame. Because one standard deviation above the mean would be a film. 50. I've already done it. It's about $2.2 billion. Only one film has done better than one standard deviation from the average. Only 2 films have done worse than one standard deviation below. So if you took the mean, 901 million, and subtracted the standard deviation, 559 million, you end up somewhere in the neighborhood of $342 million. Only 2 films have done worse than that. The Marvels at 161 and The Incredible Hulk at 265, which means all of these films, with the exception of 3, are clustered really close to the average. They're all within one standard deviation of the average. Now, the standard deviation is big because the spread is big, but literally every film is within one standard deviation.
All of that proves is that your data is accurate.
What it proves is the data is skewed towards...
It's skewed to the left.
It's skewed, right, towards the bottom side. But the point is, we don't have these huge outliers that are out there. We have a small number of outliers, but the data seems to be clustered all up near the mean.
You do have outliers. That is not how you determine outliers. Because the data is not symmetrical, you would have to find the interquartile range. So you have to find the range, and then that's how you determine your outliers. And looking at it, you're going to have about, I think you'd say you have 5 or 6 outliers. I would graph this not on a normal curve, but in a box plot. And that would really show you the deviation of it all.
And we have not done that.
Because like what you're saying is true, right? Like you do only have 3 films that are not within one standard deviation of each other. But because the data is not symmetrical, you can't look at it that way. Because not all the numbers are similar, because it's skewed, standard deviation doesn't mean anything.
Let's talk about phases. And because we're getting close to the end of our normal time with this. And last week we ranked our phases by the ones we like the most. And I didn't listen to last week's show to remind myself. I listened to it, but I didn't listen to it recently to remind myself of this. But if you look just purely at the box office averages of each phase, this is the order they go in. Phase 3 has the highest. Phase 2 has the second highest. Phase 4 is the third highest. Phase 1 is the fourth highest, and phase 5 is the fifth highest.
See, but I think I could have told you that, because when you look at it, phase 3 has 7 films that made over $1 billion. Phase 2 has 2 films made over $1 billion. Phase 4 has 1. Phase 1 has 1. Phase 5 has none. Like that ranking comes truly from the outliers.
Well, I get that
on the high side.
I get that, but the episode is assumptions assembled, so we're challenging our assumptions. Last week, I said and you said phase 3 was the best phase, and just purely on entertainment and fun.
Right?
Would you say that's so? The box office numbers back up for phase 3 that it's the best phase for us.
I mean, yeah, but there's also more films in phase 3 than there are anywhere else.
Right, but that's why you look at the average, because the average takes into account that there are more films than the others. Now, we both thought, well, I don't know, did we both feel, I felt that phase 2, I felt phase, was it 2 or 1 that I felt was the next best? I think it was 2 because I can't remember what I ranked phase 2 or phase 1 next for me. Do you remember which one?
I don't. I think it was 2.
I know we both had 5 as the fifth. No, you had 4 as your last, and I had phase 5 as my last.
I don't remember.
Well, phase 2 has the second highest box office average. And that is Ant-Man, Thor the Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man 3, and Avengers Age of Ultron. Phase 4, which ranked 3rd in box office average, had Black Widow, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man No Way Home. I did not think 4. I think with phase 4, I had phase 4 like 4th. On my list. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think box office can accurately reflect the quality of a film because of the context. And I know you only want to talk about numbers, but that's unrealistic.
Right.
But it to me is it's interesting to me because The Marvels is performing poorly. It's being reported as a bad film. There's also a lot of context into why people don't want to see the film, or reasons that some people can find it easier to hate this film. I mean, like, let's just be frank about it. Like, 2 women of color in the lead and then a gay person. and nobody like, I mean, that alone causes so much internal like issues with the film, like not just based
I don't think
purely
that's
off of
accounting
internal
for millions
bias.
of dollars of box office receipts.
But I think
though.
you underestimate the power of that. It's not the box office that explains. That explains the reporting of the film. And like, well, I'm not saying the poor reviews of the film can be chalked up to misogyny and internalized, issues, but it does definitely play into the fact that it can. I mean, like, I think objectively, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a worse movie than the Marvels, but it doesn't matter because it's a man at the head of that film. And like, while I don't need to get into all of that, like,
I think that's some of it, but you can't. I don't think it's fair to say that accounts for the entire difference in the films.
That's not what I'm saying. But it's that can potentially cause poor reviews of the film, that can cause people to not go see the film, and that's all I'm saying.
But I think the reviews of Quantumania were bad because the CGI was not good and the film seemed rushed and put together poorly. I think the Marvel's criticism has not been laid on the actors or the characters as much as it's been the weak villain and seemingly the disconnected storyline between what people are expecting. I think no one's criticizing the CG. No one's criticizing the acting jobs the characters have had.
And
no one's criticizing the characters. I think that the criticism is that I think what it boils down to this. If you look at the films that make the most money, it is the most familiar Marvel characters that we were sort of, that the audiences were sort of introduced to first, that are the most comfortable, are the ones that they gravitate towards the most. And as more new characters have been introduced, and some would say there have been too many new characters introduced because people are confused.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the characters that we know from the TV shows that don't even appear in the movies yet.
Right.
There's a saturation of characters, and people tend to have favorite characters. I mean, look, comic book characters, they're favorites. I like many of them. I like Spider-Man, but I've never been a Spider-Man, disciple or evangelist. I love Batman. Batman is my favorite, and he's not even a Marvel character. And when it comes to Marvel, I really like Captain America. I've just always liked Captain America. These newer characters take more time for people to connect to, right?
See, and so I think, I mean, yeah, but I said this once in a Star Wars episode about how to explain poor reviews of the trilogy sequel trilogy. And I think it's coming back around in Marvel. I think a new generation of writers and artists and actors are coming into this scene, and they're coming in with modern takes on modern characters that they can connect with that an older generation can't. And it's not that Captain America is out of touch. It's not that we don't care about Thor. It's not that we don't love Hulk. It's none of those things. It's the fact that it's the idea about, literally, it is what I said about the Star Wars things. Your generation hates the prequels. The generation before you, or the generation right after you, hates y'all's films. And then y'all hate, like, wait, what did I even say? It was like the idea that like the generations hate the movies that came before it, right? Because, or the ones that came after it, because it's not the ones that they grew up with. People are fine. I'm kind of all over the place because
let me help. Because I have a legitimate question that I'd love to hear your opinion on. Because you're a storyteller, you're a writer. The new characters that they want us to go see, I'm going to make here's a theory. It's not Troy's theory. It's not Papa's theory. It's just a theory that I thought of. Is Marvel just being lazy and assuming that because they're going to slap a Marvel logo on it and that it's a character that is not a traditional character, that they just assume people are going to connect to it and go to it? So here's the thing. Is it disrespectful, or is it lazy storytelling to expect people to gravitate towards the Marvels because it's characters of color, female characters, gay character, but there's not any more depth to those characters. These other characters, in other words, if you want to rally behind a hero, and you know enough about storytelling to know this, the hero has to go through a compelling journey with real protagonists and real strongly written conflict.
But that's
and that has not happened with these three characters.
Because there's been two journeys. I mean, you got attached to Captain America. Like,
but Captain America's journey.
You're trying to tell me you watched Captain America: First Avenger with $371 million in the box office, and we're like, "Yep, I'm obsessed with this character. I want to know more." Blah blah blah. Like, no, you were not initially attached to this character. In fact, I could go as far as to say people didn't get attached to Captain America or Captain America until Winter Soldier. People weren't attached to Iron Man until well into the Avengers series. I think personally, what I think is going on from a storyteller perspective, Marvel has ended this series, and the fans of your generation and the weird millennial generation do not want to let go of it. They do not want to move on. They do not want to leave Captain America behind, and they are not willing to accept these newer characters. And Marvel is playing not to the millennial generation, not to you guys anymore. Marvel is playing to me.
You're not wrong. And hear me out. Think of the characters in the MCU that are the biggest draws, that have the biggest positive reactions. I'm going to go through them with you. Iron Man. There are reports that Robert Downey Jr. has agreed to come back as Tony Stark and do more Iron Man stuff. Captain America. There continues to be, commentary on Chris Evans coming back to reprise the role of Captain America. Hulk. Everyone wants more solo Hulk movies. Scarlet Witch. I mean, look at WandaVision. Look at what they did with Scarlet Witch. Loki. Look at the Loki character who is now Loki is a more positively accepted and desired character than Thor. There's a reason the characters I just named, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Scarlet Witch, Loki, are the most box office gold characters. And it's because
they've been around for 20 years.
No. If you think of how the MCU has treated those characters, their journey, their story, their origin, their conflicts, the conflicts that Tony Stark has had to deal with internally and externally. Captain America being frozen in time, being a scrawny guy who's trying to, get in and do the right thing. The Hulk, the internal conflict of now the Hulk that exists right now is losing interest because it's become sort of a caricature of the Hulk. I want the rage monster Hulk. That is the engaging one. Scarlet Witch, the conflict that she's had from the first time we see her in Ultron to what we see in Multiverse of Madness, the development of that character. Loki's development. They have invested great storytelling, great conflict, great protagonist and antagonist situations, and have developed those stories. They have not done that with these other characters. And what I'm agreeing with you. What they're doing to characters like Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel in the Marvels is not fair because they haven't invested in the storytelling to make more of a wider audience really connect and care with those characters.
Guardians of the Galaxy aren't letting them do it yet. That's what I'm saying. Like all these points you made about Wanda's development and Loki's development and Thor's development and all this stuff. I mean, that is literally proving my point. There's 20 years of Wanda content, 20 years of Loki content, 20 years of Captain America content, 15 years. I mean, like, look at all these films. I mean, seriously, like, you get connected to these characters because of their timelessness, and you're not letting these characters become timeless. You're not letting them develop their stories. I mean, Kamala Khan, like, her whole series was about connecting to her culture and to her, like, fangirl side and to her superpowers. I mean, like, you have to let the story come out naturally. It's not just going to appear in one film. And my point is that I think what your generation and what millennials are struggling with is that Marvel is giving great story or decent, good enough storytelling to characters like Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop. It's just not relatable to you anymore. It's relatable to, I understand Kamala Khan.
Oh, I love those characters.
You can love them, but you're not going to connect with them in the way that I am because they're not relatable to you because you're not an 18-year-old girl. You're not an 18-year-old guy anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I'm Gen X, actually.
I mean, you're not 20. You're not 25. I mean, like, these characters are not, they're not to say they're not for you, but they're not for you. And you have to take them where they are. I mean, I don't feel any sort of connection to Captain America or Iron Man or any of these things that you've mentioned, with the exception of Wanda, because they're not mine. I didn't grow up.
But would you say that how they're portrayed in the films, though, has been done in a way to guide audiences to care about those characters, whereas Captain Marvel was sort of plopped in and you were expected to just care because she's on the screen?
Captain Marvel is an interesting specific case because her solo movie was not great. If her solo movie had been better, fine. But you could make the same argument for Black Widow. She came out of literally nowhere in the Avengers, and then all of a sudden you had to care about her. And nobody liked that either. And all of a sudden she became the most like adored character of all time.
I would say her box office indicates how much people didn't care about her solo movie.
Her movie came out during COVID. We were all at home.
Right.
Nobody saw that movie because nobody was going to buy it. Right. And then this doesn't even factor in how many people watched it when it was released to Disney Plus for free. I mean, like, let's be serious here. That's not a fair argument. My perspective on this is that characters like Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan and Scarlet Witch are being given the amount of attention that Captain America is, and that Iron Man was, and that Thor was. The audiences, the older audiences, want it to happen lickety-split, and they want to connect to these characters in the way that they were connected to Captain America. But it's changing, and you have to accept the change, and you have to accept the fact that it's different. I see older audiences looking for a new Captain America, looking for a new Iron Man, looking for a new Hulk, looking for a new Thor, looking for a new Avengers. And you're just not going to be able to recreate that, and you have to accept it and move on.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And
the characters aren't for you. I mean, like, I love Kamala Khan so much. I love Wanda so much. I understand her. Right. She's a 20-something, you know, she is my age. She is relatable to me. And while I think movies like Eternals weren't great, and Shang-Chi wasn't great, and Thor Love and Thunder wasn't great, I mean, even Multiverse of Madness wasn't fantastic, they're getting there, right? I mean, like, this is like phase 1 all over again, because it's an entirely new storyline. I mean, like, Hulk wasn't great, Captain America wasn't great, Thor wasn't great, Iron Man wasn't great, but like, you have to let it build up, guys. My issue is that the plots don't align, and that drives me crazy. But it has nothing to do with the characters.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. And I think the purpose of this discussion, to sort of begin to wrap things up here, is that we wanted to challenge the assumption that the box office was an indicator of the quality of the films. And I think what we walked away from, I think we can agree on this. I think we can agree that the box office expectations of the Marvel films is inflated by a small number of films that have done extraordinarily well.
Right.
And so every other film, it's not realistic to gauge them against the $1 billion earner, because only 10 of the 33 films have earned $1 billion or more. I think it's also problematic that most of the films are pretty average films. And because we have this huge positive response to a small set of these films, that when a film seems to be greatly different than one of those films, we tend to also overinflate maybe how bad the film is. So
right. Like, I'm sorry,
none of these films are as bad as people make them out to be. Many of them are not as good as people make them out to be. And mostly that is because of a small number of films in the 33 that have done extraordinarily well at the box office and have created this expectation that is not realistic as the MCU enters into a new phase. Is that a pretty accurate?
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry the Marvels is not Iron Man, but like, let's be real here. Iron Man didn't do that great in the box office either. I mean, like, I think the box office is reflecting a transitional period where girls and, boys, kids, teenagers, young teens, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, haven't quite made their way into the theaters yet, but the shows are very successful. I mean, Miss Marvel was super successful. Hawkeye was super successful. I mean, the shows have been doing really well, but it's these kids, the teenagers my age, middle school, that haven't quite made their way into the theaters yet. And there's this residue of like old people that are like, this isn't Captain America. And it's like, yeah, duh, move on. Like it's this weird, very transitional period.
And I don't know what year Iron Man came out and how to adjust that for inflation.
2000 or 1990?
Well, I don't want to do the math right now because then this episode is going to get really long. But I would say that even if adjusted for inflation, if it was a 10% bump, which I think is probably a little bit more than 10%, Iron Man would have made 640 something million, which would have been, a little less than the mean, right? Or the median being 773
it would have made
million.
687.
Right. So it would have done significantly better than it did if you adjusted for inflation, but we didn't adjust for inflation. Look, the bottom line is this. We wanted to, again, let's recap because we're getting on an hour here. We wanted to challenge the assumption that the box office ranking was an indicator of the quality of the film. I think we both universally agree that that is not true in most cases. In some cases, it is true. Some of these films that made over $1 billion, we would consider among the better Marvel films, right? We would say Infinity War, Endgame, Black Panther. These were films that made over $1 billion that we would consider among the top level of the films. Some of them, not so much. Iron Man 3 made over $1 billion. No one is putting that in the top whatever. Age of Ultron is a mixed bag. Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. I don't think anyone's putting that in the top 10 of any of the film rankings. So in some cases it's true, in some cases it's not true.
I mean, Doctor Strange made almost $1 billion and it's regarded as one of the worst, which is so silly to me.
The Multiverse of Madness one.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Right. Doctor Strange Classic made 678, which I think is exactly the number I would have given that movie.
I think what this indicates is that the quality of the film is not indicative of the box office, and the box office is not indicative of the quality of the film, even though it does have some influence. It is not the only factors. So I guess let's leave our listeners with this advice. Go see the film. If you're interested, just go see it.
Make your own decision, guys. Don't be a sheep.
Yeah, try, make up your own mind. Look, Mimi and I...
Entertainment Today does not know everything.
Mimi and I have our opinions about films. We didn't particularly care for Shang-Chi. Some people think Shang-Chi is one of the best. It's okay. It's okay to like what you like and not like what you don't like. And if the box office, let's just hope that the box office does well enough so that the characters we want to see more of are able to be seen more. Because if they don't do well at the box office, chances are you're probably not going to see very much of them. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, Mimi, this is one of our longest episodes ever that you and I have done. So why don't we wrap things up and share with everyone how they can get in touch with us to explain how confused they are by all the data analysis we did this week.
Yeah, so you guys can send us an email, disneyassembled@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all at Disney Assembled.
Yes, thanks. Please do that. And also, you can check out our YouTube channel.
Oh, wait, I forgot the second half of my bit.
Oh, you got to do your second half. You got to help us out. It's the holiday season, so how can they help us out?
But if you guys want to support the show further, the link to our TeePublic, Patreon, Buy Us a Dole Whip, all that fun stuff is on our website, DisneyAssembled.com. Make sure to go check it out.
It's a great time of year to go to our shop. TeePublic runs plenty of sales at this time of year. If you've been waiting to get that Disney Assembled merch, go to our shop. Like Mimi said, that would really help us out a lot. We'd really appreciate your consideration for that. However, if you haven't done so already, suggest this episode, suggest our show to friends, share it on your social networks that you use. That'd be great. We'd really appreciate that. If you have the opportunity to leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice, Would really appreciate your consideration of doing that as well. And of course, we have a YouTube channel where you can check out the live episode we just did recently, the little live, not really an episode, just sort of a live, conversation. And of course, all our episodes that we've been putting out recently are on our YouTube channel. Check it out, youtube.com/Disney Assembled. Don't be afraid to subscribe to that thing. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Just hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't hurt. It's painless. We won't bother you. If you want to be bothered, if you want to get notifications of when we put new content on the YouTube channel, you can hit the bell icon. But you don't need to hit the bell icon. Just hit the subscribe button. That would be great too.
Heck yeah.
All right, Mimi, high five. Good job. We challenged our assumptions. We came out on the other end. We came to some agreements about the MCU.
We did.
I think we're going to take a break from MCU content going forward for the next couple of weeks, but we do have to get that 200th episode planned. So guys, remember, if you have ideas on how you think we should celebrate our 200th episode, shoot us that email, disneyassembled@gmail.com. All right. Good job. One more high five. Excellent. Good job. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope this episode brought a smile to your face, some extra magic to your day, and an all-important sprinkle of pixie dust to your week. Thank you for listening, and until next time,
see you real soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please collect your belongings, watch your head and step, and take small children by the hand.